going to the screen.
As we begin, let's begin with a word of prayer. Let's pray. Father, yet again, we thank you and we praise you for the music that we've heard, the story that we've heard, and even as we're getting started with this brand new series and a brand new story, we ask that you would show us the relevance to our times. Keep us listening, keep us focused, keep us looking for your face in all that we're learning. Guide us step by step on the way ahead. This is our prayer in the name of Jesus we pray. Amen. Now, Isaac Newton was an amazing man. To say that he was amazing would be a great understatement. The very fact that in his third law of motion, he stated this: for every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. You know, I can go up to the wall and I can kick the wall, and first response with some of you will probably say, well, that was stupid. Why did you do that? You got hurt. Well, obviously I did. But think about it this way. If I kick the wall, unless the wall is flimsy, my foot is going to be coming back. It's just like if you go to a doctor's office and you get a normal physical. One of the things that they'll do is they'll take one of those little knee knockers and they'll put it against your knee and soft tap, up, leg goes up. Now, if they hit it hard, I feel sorry for the doctor. His leg will probably go up farther and the doctor may go flying. But it's interesting, as we take a look at that fact, could it be that Newton was talking about something more than just the relative in physics? Could it even go even beyond into what we're dealing with right now? If we're not learning from our past, we're told that we will not only repeat it, we're going to be doomed to repeat it. But more than just that, we need to remember how Jesus has worked in our past. Not just there, but how he's working in our times right now. Are we actually learning from what happened, or are we going, well, you know, that was someone else, that was something else, and I'm better than they were, so I have nothing to worry about? Sorry, we have a lot to worry about. Whether we like it or not, all of us need to work together going forward to understand in everything that happens, there is a consequence. So often, like I mentioned earlier, when we take a look at the word consequence, all we see is those first three letters, con, meaning something that goes against. But when you look at it from the very original English, a consequence was actually either a benefit for or benefit against. Which that sounds kind of funny, doesn't it? How can you have something that benefits that is against you? In both ways, when you look at it, you're going to grow if you allow the circumstance to grow through you. Did you notice what I just said? Grow through you. Not around you, not over you, not under you, or out from you. In order for us to properly grow how God is calling us, he's taking us through these things so that we're able to grow through the experience to continue to become the people that God has called us to be. You know, the story that we're going to be taking a look at in just a moment has a very interesting element in it that we don't often see or understand. And that element is the element of shame. Now, if you've ever been to any Asian countries, you'll understand that they have a very save-face type of culture, very save-face type of mentality. And often, especially in my time in Asia over a number of years, I thought it was funny how they considered the Middle East as being part of Asia. Not until I started studying some of these stories in the Bible even more thoroughly did I realize how true this was. Because all of a sudden we see a very save face, a very Well, I better be careful how I shame you because of what it might do. But there's an interesting element that we're going to be touching on in just a minute. But I want us to go ahead and take a look at this story, starting with the verse that was just read. Chapter 8, verse 1, where it says, "But Jesus went to the Mount of Olives." Before that, we see what we talked about previously in another series, where Jesus had been bombarded by all this stuff and been told that, well, you can't be who you say you are, because obviously, come on, boy, don't you understand that nothing good comes from Nazareth? What we forget is that not only before a lot of this stuff, but after and before anything else, Jesus goes back to the mountain to pray. That was the biggest thing Jesus did. He spent time in communion. So often as we're looking at this, the way that we picture Jesus is picturing him grasping at the dirt, grasping at these roots, grasping at a tree. Sometimes some of the pictures, even before Gethsemane, we see him with blood straining down his face because he was so intense kneeling in prayer. With the concept that we see with how Jesus did things is based on how our worldview has determined the things that we're doing. Even the concept of how we're in prayer these days, how we teach people to pray. A lot of the ideas of reverence came from other areas. We're able to be out wherever we are and pray because God wants to hear us. You've heard me mention this before, and I'll mention it again. Here's how I see it. As Jesus is going into the garden on the Mount of Olives during these time of prayer, he's by himself. Now, by himself as far as in the human sense. He is never by himself because the Father and the Spirit are with him. The three who have always been from even before anything ever was, they are there together communicating, reminding each other, reminding Jesus, pumping him up for what's going to happen so that he's ready. Because remember this, as we take a look at any of the gospel stories, there is one thing that we know for certain. Jesus was never taken by surprise. Why was he not taken by surprise? Well, there's a number of reasons for that. Number one, because of the fact that he spent time in daily communication. Did you notice that? In daily communication. Even when it was not evening, he was still in communication. Number two, he was not taken by surprise because he knew the people. Jesus knew the people because he spent time with the people. The people were not new to Jesus. Even before his public ministry started, quote unquote public ministry, remember there was 30 years before that these same people he was in ministry with. Let us remember this. The truth of the situation is this. You don't have to be a preacher or public speaker anywhere. What God has called you to do, whether that is a bus driver, a nurse, someone that's taking medicine to someone, a teacher, a cook, whatever God has called you to do it with all your might, because you are as much in the work of God as the preacher any day of the week. Someone that is going to say otherwise is wrong, because when God calls a person into ministry, there is a niche that God calls them into for that worldview. We each are a piece of that puzzle that God calls us to make together as a family of faith, so that by how we reflect, we show Jesus moment by moment. Our story is just part of the greater story. But as Jesus did, So should we. Yes, for a lot of us, and I'll be the first one to raise my hand, I'm sorry, I have a hard time staying up at nights. I like that little thing called sleep, sometimes more than others. But Jesus knows our weakness. He knows who we are, and he continues, hey, here's the truth of the situation. Here's the consequence with this. Yeah, it's going to be hard, but I am with you through this. Follow what I've asked you to do. Even if it's just a little bit of time as we're communicating at night, that's great. Remember this, the fact that I want you to be communicating with me moment by moment by moment through your day. Know that as we're communicating, note that as we're communicating, God's always communicating with us. Are we actually listening? As we're communicating with him, we are walking with him. Sometimes 99.998% of the time, he's carrying us through those situations. But he calls us to continue to be in that moment communication. But it continues on. Early in the morning, he's been spending all night in prayer. Early in the morning, he came again into the temple, and all the people were coming to him, and he sat down and began to teach them. The people loved Jesus. They knew that Jesus was going to tell them the truth. They flocked. Jesus, the moment he saw them, time to teach. He sits down. Not only does he teach, but he takes the stories of what were to make them what is. That's what we are called to do as well. To take what was to make it what is. And remember that as we're speaking, it is not our words, it is God's words, because he wants to continue to speak through us. May we be willing to serve and to be of service, not to ourselves, to others and to him as we're going forward. But that was Jesus' joy. Spent time, and then he spent time. Spent time with the vertical, and he spent time with the horizontal right there. He's with the people. He knows the people. But here's where the twist comes. The Pharisees and scribes brought a woman caught in adultery, and having set her in the center of the court, they said to him, "Teacher, this woman has been caught in adultery in the very act. Now in the law, Moses commanded us to stone such a woman. What then do you say?" Now, did you catch that? Right there, I hope you did. Earlier, they brought a woman. Notice that, singular person. Okay, well, we've got a problem there because it takes two to commit adultery. And even more, as you look at the Levitical law, the whole concept with this is that both the man and the woman were to be stoned. But we only see the woman. And there's even with the text, there's a lot of speculation who that is. But there's a case that can be made as you piece the different gospels together as far as who that might be. But we see this woman. Now, it's not just the fact that they catch her in the very act of adultery, but they've got a plan. They are trying to stump Jesus. They're trying to make him slip up. But what they keep forgetting is Jesus is always ready for them at any time. Just like when we see in the wilderness, Satan coming to Jesus wasn't a surprise. He was ready. He was ready because he knew the very scriptures that not only spoke of him, but he was the one that spoke the writing into existence. Now, even with that, I have to pause and jump back and remind us that as God is speaking the scriptures into existence, It is not a verbatim thing that all of a sudden those writers are writing word for word. God communicated the scriptures to humans, and they put them down into their own words and their own understanding. With that being said, that does not make it to where the scriptures are no less inspired. They are inspired because it is the very written and living Word of God. But Jesus knows what his response is going to be. Right there, don't you know? Did you get that? You're the one at fault, not this woman. Come on now, Jesus. What are you going to say? Now, doesn't that sound familiar? That's not just something that happened in Jesus' day. Jesus continues to promise us this. When you continue to say and speak and stand for the truth, know that you will continue to go through the very same things that I went through because you are following me. Now, I mentioned this to someone earlier today. We need to make sure that as we're living by the very standards of God, that we're living by the very standards of the Master. How can we call ourselves Christian or by that name when we're not following what Jesus has asked us to follow? By not doing that, we forget that we've broken the very 10 themselves, because we've broken the very transcript of who God is. But here's where it gets interesting. They were saying this, testing him so that they might have grounds for accusing him. But Jesus stooped down and with his finger wrote on the ground. Very conniving, isn't it? What can we do? What can we do? I got it. Jesus is ready for it. Notice this. He doesn't respond. He doesn't react. In life, we're given two choices. When something comes our way, we can either respond or we can react. A reaction comes from a very deep-seated emotion within us. God says, hey, I want you to learn to respond. But what we see is this. We see Jesus bending down and he starts writing in the dust of the ground. The very action with that, trying to get us to understand that this, while it is their sins, this is not permanent. There is a course of forgiveness that can be taken. And we see later that it's wiped away, signifying that that too can be happening. But here's what I love. We're told this, that very finger that was writing in the dust was the same finger that wrote on the wall in Daniel's time. But get this, was the same finger that etched the commandments in stone for Moses. Now that's pretty powerful, isn't it? Showing something that's lasting, that it's eternal. But he's watching. And here's what happens. But when they persisted in asking him, he straightened up and said to them, he who is without sin among you, let him be the first to throw a stone at her. Here's what's interesting with this grammar right there is the whole concept of persisting. What it means is they were almost like a lion or a group of lions or jackals or hyenas. They are moving the center closer and closer and closer. Literally very antagonistic. They're trying to make Jesus squeal, trying to get him to say something that he not normally would say. Jesus isn't going to do this. Jesus knows who he is. So he stops because he knows what they're doing. And he straightens up. He stands up to his full height and he says, hey, listen to this. The one who is blameless, the one who has no faults, You pick up the stone and you throw it at her. Now, what we forget, we're not talking about a pebble-sized stone. We're talking about something the size of a softball or bigger. Something that's going to cause damage. Jesus, hey, you think you're right? You show you're right. What they forgot was that in the very law that they were given, it mentions to the fact that the blameless one will be the one that walks away. They will not be the one that is accusing, because there is only one accuser, and that is Satan himself. How is it that too many times we, as the followers of Christ, take upon ourselves the theme of the accuser and accuse our brethren, when Jesus continues to come back to us and say, hey, listen, there will always be truth throughout history, and even more, remember the truth as it is in me. Focus on the needs of others. Focus on serving others, not being the one that accuses, not being the one that drags them down, but the one that continues to lift them up to me. Follow the example that I have called you to follow. But we see this, and it goes on, it says, again, he stooped down and wrote on the ground. Jesus wasn't done yet. And when they heard it, what Jesus had said, they began to go out one by one, beginning with the older ones, and he was left alone, and the woman where she was in the center of the court. Now that would have been a picture, wouldn't it? All of a sudden, you hear this plunk, 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 plunk. Probably huge plunks with some of these rocks, but it was the oldest, the older ones that were the leaders that should not have been there that start going away first, because they were the ones that had the most to be held accountable for. They knew that they weren't blameless. But then you got these little whippersnappers that knew everything, that they stayed even longer. And then when they saw Jesus write theirs in the sand, they went, whoa, hold on. We're gone. But then we see that Jesus stops again, and there is no one. Now, what's interesting with this text is when we look at the background of this and even the culture, we're not just saying that the religious leaders were gone. Every single person that was even in that area, even in the court of judgment, because that's the court that we're talking about, this little area in the temple, they were gone. Everyone was out of sight because they knew that God had showed up. Don't you love that? When God shows up in our situation, everyone leaves, because they know that in the presence of God, only the true remains. Which, even as we look at our judicial system, is very different from how God set things up originally. You know, I love the stories from the very Hebrew culture itself, how there was only a judge and a prosecutor. And there you are at the defender's bench. Now in our picture, we go, oh, hold on. Oh, that's so scary. How am I going to do anything? How am I? You're not going to do anything. What we don't understand from a Western mentality is the fact that your judge was your defense attorney. Now, isn't that amazing right there? If you know your judge, you know that you're going to be scot-free. You're going to be let go. You're going to be pardoned because your judge is fighting for you. This is why, as we take a look at the different texts in Psalms, where David is pleading to God and he's saying, hey, you're my judge. You're my defense attorney. Remember what you promised. David knows who he's calling to. David knows who his judge is because his judge is God. And God's ways are eternal. But even more than just that, God's truth is eternal. And no matter what side the consequences may be, it is always for our good. Sometimes God leads us through things that we will never understand, but they will always be for our good. But I want us to finish up these last two verses in this story. Straightening up, Jesus said to her, "Woman, where are they? Did no one condemn you?" Now, did you notice that? I always love this question right there. Woman, where are they? Right there. In the times that we're living in, that seems very condescending, doesn't it? Seems like it's a put down. But actually, in that time, that was actually a compliment. Where we see this even in the equivalent of Jesus' first miracle. Woman, what do I have to do with this? Talking to his mother. It was literally saying, hey, I respect you. I honor you. What's going on? Right there, Jesus is saying, hey, girl, look, pick up your chin. He's down there with her, helping her up, lifting up her head. Look around. Do you see anyone that is going to put you down? That's where the close of this story comes. She said, "No one, Lord." And Jesus said, "I do not condemn you either. Go, from now on, sin no more." That last part, we could have taken that out. Oh, that's great. Go your way. But Jesus doesn't do that. Jesus has reasons for how he responds in every single situation. First, he asks the question. He already knows the answer. He wants her engaged in this dialogue. She engages. "Hey, my accusers are gone." And Jesus says, "Hey, listen, the one and only one that could accuse you of anything does not accuse you." That's the very language within the text. I don't accuse you. I don't condemn you. Go. Go and you live your life. But he doesn't just say go and live your life. He says this. He says, go and sin no more. Go away from that lifestyle. Go away from those problems. Go away from what has been dragging you down. Go away from everyone and anything that is going to affect your relationship with me. Go and live a new life. Now, with that, Jesus continues to call us, not just to go and live a new life, but to go and stay away from the sin that had brought us down once upon a time. But even with that, Jesus reminds us this. Remember the truth that is in me. Remember to live the life that I have continued to call you to make you a better person. Consequences will come on both sides, but it is for your benefit. Follow me, trust me, believe me, because I'm taking you through to eternity and beyond. As we listen to this final thought song, let us remember that very fact that Jesus is always with us, no matter what the cost. Let's pray. Father, we thank you for the very fact that no matter what's happening, we continue to see you working. We're so eager to be of service. Show us where it is that you would place us, that you would want us to do service. Continue to remind us that our very service does not need to be with words all the time, but it can be with the very actions of taking something simple and giving it to someone else. Father, guide us as we head through this next week. Bring us back again next week, Sabbath afternoon, ready to and looking forward to studying together. Guide our thoughts, guide our minds. Focus them on you and you alone. This is our prayer. In the name of Jesus we pray. Amen. You know, as always, I'm so thankful that all of you have joined us today it is such an immense blessing to have this extra chance to be able to worship together. As I mentioned earlier, November 28th, after I preach, we'll be doing a small communion service together. So something special to look forward to with that as well. Also, if you know other people that would be blessed by what we're doing here in these 2 hours or so together, invite more people to come out and join us. This is not something that we're saying, hey, we're making a new church, we're doing this, we're doing that. No, this is us coming together, worshiping together yet another time, encouraging us, all of us, to focus on Jesus in these crazy times as we continue to grow together. As always, Tuesdays and Thursdays, invite you to join me on my blog site, districtdevotional.blogspot.com. Tuesdays, I've got my written blog. Thursdays, I've got my video. That always comes on YouTube. So something each week to look forward to. And even more than that, I always enjoy being with you Sabbath afternoon after Sabbath afternoon as we continue to dive into God's Word. But as always, God bless. I look forward to next week where we'll be yet again able to study God's Word together. God bless.